they feel when they're sober. Kelly, what thoughts come into their head? Sadie, what are they thinking about? Who knows what I'm getting at? Well, it's crystal clear the way you don't like the way you feel.
We're trying to find more.
You're going to get high. So if you don't feel good, your brain says, yuck, I don't like the way I feel. Go get me some drugs. And it'll make you go get you your drugs. I'll prove it to you. So the problem for drug addicts is not getting high. It's being sober. Because drugs always make you high. You may need to use more. That's not the problem. That's a gimme. That's free. It's the damage they do to your pleasure centers. That's the problem for drug users. Did you know this? Did you know that? Is this new information?
Somewhat.
Okay. Was this new information?
Yeah.
Did you know that drugs burnt out your pleasure centers? You know what, you guys? You're experts on this subject. You are stone experts on this subject. You can describe what it feels like to not have pleasure better than anybody else. If someone asks you what's it like, you could explain if you knew what the question meant. So if you look at it, you use, your brain starts saying, whoo, too much, and starts the neuroadaptation process, starts going down. As soon as that happens, it takes you more to get high than you used to. And that's the sign that you have a disease of the brain called addiction. And anyone who's tolerant will always get withdrawal. Can't separate them. That means that without the drugs, there's this awful interference in the ability to enjoy yourself. And you just can't enjoy yourself. That's the problem. When they're sober, they get, what's anhedonia mean? No pleasure. They get anxious. They get angry. They're frustrated. And they get craving for the drug. The brain says, I don't like this. Get me some. That get me some is called craving. Okay? Now, in addition to pleasure centers, this is complicated. Let's use the example of alcohol, okay? I mean, alcohol is a pleasure-producing drug, right? Has another main effect. What is it? What else does alcohol do besides make you feel good?
Kills you slowly.
What?
Gets you drunk.
What's that mean?
You're not yourself. You can't stand.
Calms you down, takes away your logic, takes away your ability to coordinate yourself. It's a separate thing than feeling good. Alcohol has a side effect. It's a calming drug. Alcohol's a big calming drug. If it calms you too much, what do you get?
Sick.
Dead.
Blackout.
You can black out. That's too much. Keep on going, what do you get? Dead. So it can calm you really calm, calm you forever. That's called alcohol poisoning. Okay, so in addition to, let's take a person drinking. He loses his pleasure. You understand that, right? He also loses his ability to calm down because because alcohol stimulates the calming centers of the brain just like the pleasure centers. You overstimulate the calming centers, they neuroadapt. So if you look at someone who's a regular drinker, when they stop, they're not calm. They're shaky, they get sweaty, they can't sleep, they get anxious. What are you looking at? They get irritable, they get in a bad mood. They go to the opposite of calm. It sucks. It's horrible. You can't sleep, you get shaky, your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, your brain is spinning like crazy. Alcohol withdrawal has two main symptoms: no pleasure, no calm. So all drugs, in addition to making you high, do something else. What do painkillers do? Make you high, give you amazing pleasure. But they also keep you from relax you, take away any pain. Now, if you use enough to get diseased, how would you know that you've overdone, say, oxys?
When you're still in pain, you do it.
Good answer, that even though you're doing it, you're still in pain. You need more and more, so the tolerance process has set in, right? So anyone who's tolerant to painkillers doesn't feel okay when they stop. They have terrible pain. I'm around pill addicts all day, every day. Boy, they hurt so bad. Their toenails hurt, their hair hurts, everything hurts. They can't calm down, they can't sleep, they're very, very anxious. Have any of you seen a pill person in withdrawal? Describe it. Danielle, describe it.
All jittery and talk slow, and then they stutter a lot. They don't really know what's going on. Sometimes they don't even care.
Are they in a good mood or a bad mood?
Bad mood.
Bad mood.
Sweaty and sick.
What do they want? And they're sick. They're vomiting, they've got cramps, diarrhea. What are they looking to do? Find the next dose. They get desperate. Man, I'm watching these people all day get sick. I would do it. I couldn't go through that, man. I watch what they go through. It's awful. Did you guys know that I can make that sickness go away in 15 minutes? It's so sad that there's people all over the place going through that, and we could treat it in 15 minutes, go away just like that. They don't have to go through sickness. What happens to people who keep going through the sickness? Do they want to keep trying? No. They what?
They should stay on the drug till they don't have to get sick anymore.
They want to keep getting more and more so they can
So
pass
they
the
feel like
sickness.
themselves.
That's right. You got it. So they damage not only their pleasure centers, they damage their pain centers. And when they stop, they don't have any pleasure, but they also hurt all over. So it's not just pleasure you lose. Whatever else the drug does, you lose that too. And that makes people desperate to use more. You guys have seen this. I'm not telling you something you don't know. You've seen this before. So this line says, in addition to the pleasure centers, every drug does its own thing. Calms you down, alerts you. Like meth doesn't calm you down, makes you alert. You ever seen anybody who's been a meth user when they stop? There's no alertness in them. They're like a limp noodle. They can't wake up, they can't get out of bed, they can't get up, they can't do anything. This is why drugs are bad for you. This is why drugs are bad for you. So let's start again. Javier, someone's using drugs. Let's suppose it's him. How could you tell if he was getting into trouble? Ask him.
Ask him.
With one question, what do you need to ask him? Anyone know? We're curious about the disease.
How much do you have to use to get right?
That's the question. Is it the same amount you used to use? Now, if the answer is no, I have to use more than I used to, you know now two things about him. One is that his brain is not normal now. It's a diseased brain. Maybe a little bit diseased, but it isn't normal. The other thing you know is he doesn't feel normal when he's sober. He doesn't like it. And it doesn't matter. You just don't like the way you feel. And it's always the opposite of what the drug does. Is that clear? So the magic terms, understanding drugs, is neuroadaptation. That's the name of what happens to your brain. The way you know you've neuroadapted is it takes more to get high than it used to. And if you need more to get high than you used to, you now know 100% that you will not feel normal when you stop. There's no exceptions to that rule. And what we've learned is, if the feeling you get when you stop is bad enough, you will do what you have to do to get more drug to feel better. You will do it. And you won't be able to stop because you can't stand how you feel, and you will do what you have to do. I mean, I've been around addicts all day, and one of the things I hear from them all the time is, Doc, when you can't get drugs and you start to feel that way, dude, you do what you got to do. You're not going to sit there and feel that. You're not going to stay there. You're going to do what you have to do. You'll get desperate. And I've learned that people can do some amazingly, really out there things because they just can't stand it. You know, they steal, they lie, they do all kinds of things. With me? Any questions? Nick? Any questions? You will be quizzed. Right. This is the disease we're talking about. If I could define this disease in one word, okay, someone's damaged their brain pleasure centers, their calm centers, their pain centers, they've got the disease. How do we know they have the disease? In one word, what changes when somebody gets the disease?
Loss of control.
That's the answer. What does that mean? You can't control yourself. That means even if you shouldn't, you keep doing it. The whole issue in addiction isn't what you use or how often you use, it's whether you can not use. That's the problem. So the critical change in addiction is you lose the ability to control yourself. Do you like being told what to do? Do you like being ordered around? Do you? How do you feel when people order you around?
It just makes one do the opposite.
Makes you want to do the opposite. How do you feel when you get bossed around?
Not too great.
Do you feel it's important for you to be in control of yourself? Okay, you're not. Each of you has crossed a line so that you can't control yourself. You're not controlling yourself. Here's an image for you to think about. When you get the disease, you've used enough tobacco, weed, alcohol, I don't care what it is. You've used enough bonk, bonk, bonk. You've damaged your pleasure centers. You've damaged your calm centers. You've damaged whatever you've done. At that point, you're not controlling yourself. Why do we know that? It's like, do you know what a parasite is, Kelly? Who knows what a parasite is? A parasite's like a worm. A parasite is an animal that lives off another animal. Sucks their blood or sucks their tissue, or. So a parasite gets in your body and sucks nutrition from you. When you get addiction, it's like a parasite gets into the pleasure centers of your brain. I call him the craving monster, like a big worm. He sits up in your pleasure centers and he tells you what to do. He says, Javier, you don't like the way you feel right now. Go get me some dope. And what are you going to do? You're going to go get some dope. So every teenager that I know, and I respect this, teenagers have to learn to be in charge of themselves. That's something we have to do to become adults. All of us need to learn to be in control of our behavior. The problem with the craving monster is he doesn't care what you want. He's going to make you do what he wants or she wants. He's going to sit in that brain. And if you don't feed the craving monster, he's going to get hungry. Where's my dope? And what's it starts to feel like, Nick? What's he say? Get me some dope. Now, the thing that's nasty about the craving monster is he can make you think you're in charge when you're not in charge. The craving monster can fool you, and you'll think that you're doing what you want to do, but you're not. You're doing what the craving monster wants you to do. I can prove it to you. So once you cross the line into addiction, you're not in charge. You're not in control. You're just a kid with a worm in your head, and the worm is calling the shots, flipping the switches, making you do what he wants to do. So the first thing you know, first way you know that someone's got the disease, they need more to get high. They don't feel right when they're normal. And once that happens, they won't be able to stop. Now, control means there are times when you just shouldn't use. You got to go to church. You don't want to get blottoed before you go to church. If you've crossed the line into addiction, you'll get blottoed and go to church. You'll do things you wouldn't otherwise do. There are times where you just only should have just a little bit. You can only have a little bit, or one beer. Instead, you get so drunk that you throw up in history class. That's too much. But someone who's crossed the line into addiction can't have just one. Once they start, they can't stop. Even though they need to stop. Oh, God, my mom's coming home in an hour. Let me have another beer. They just can't stop. So the whole issue in addiction is you can't control yourself. The craving monster controls you. You don't control your use. The craving monster does. Creepy. Now, another way we know that someone is an addict is called CUDAC, C-U-D-A-C. That stands for continued use despite adverse consequences. Adverse consequences means trouble. We know someone is an addict because they keep on using. It's causing them trouble. And the question is, well, if it's causing you trouble, why don't you stop? What's the answer?
It's too hard.
I can't. Or, I can stop. I talked with a guy yesterday. He said, I can stop, no problem at all. But he can't stay stopped. A guy came in the office last week and he said, I stopped. Great, man, how long has it been? About 4 hours. You know, for that guy, I was really glad, actually, because he hasn't had 4 hours where he couldn't do it in a long time. So that was a big achievement, but it wasn't very long. Now, Kudak is how we know how addicted someone is. So, you know, like with diseases like cancer, you know that with cancer we want to give really intense treatment to people where the cancer has spread, right, before it's local. So the worse the disease, the more heavy is the treatment, right? How do you know how addicted someone is? It's not by how much they use. It's not by how often they use. It's by how much trouble it's caused them. How much trouble has your use caused you?
What?
How much trouble has your use caused you?
A lot.
Give me an example.
Go to juvenile hall.
That's a big
have
one.
House arrest.
That's a big one. Okay. Has your use caused you any trouble? Like what? So, getting arrested, juvie, all that stuff. How about you?
Getting arrested. I
How about you? He hasn't caused you trouble. Okay.
So I was getting yelled at by my mom.
Well, I mean, that's a downer, being yelled at by your mom. Nick, your use caused you any trouble?
I don't think so.
Don't think so? If it's caused you trouble, why don't you stop? Sadie. I mean, here, couldn't be that great. It's causing you trouble.
So good. Yeah.
Is it because it's so good, or because it's not so good when you're not high?
Because it's not so good.
Not so good when you're not high. I mean, everybody likes being high, right? But once you're tolerant and stop, you don't like the way you feel. That's why people go back to using. It's not to get high, it's to not be sober. Right? You guys are experts on this. You're experts on this. So the way we know how addicted someone is by they're continuing to use, it's causing them trouble, and even though everybody can point out the trouble, they keep on doing it. And the worse the trouble, the more addicted you are. That means you're going to need more fancy treatment to get well. Now, let's go back. You bunked your pleasure centers, you bunked your calm centers, you bunked your pain centers. You stop. You do not like the way you feel. The brain goes, I don't like this. And it sends out a signal to your body saying, fix this. Just like if you didn't have food, it would send out a signal saying, feed me. Have any of you ever been hungry? Craving is the exact same thing as hunger. Because if you look in brain scans of people who are craving a drug, you can't tell the brain scan of someone who's hungry from someone who's craving. The parts of the brain that are active when you're hungry are active when you're wanting to use. So if you want to know what a drug addict feels like, if they don't have drugs, they crave. They feel hungry for the drug. Hungry, right? Hungry for the drug. Sadie, are you a thief? Okay. You haven't eaten all day. How you feeling?
Hungry.
What kind of a mood are you in?
Probably a bad mood.
What are you thinking about?
Food.
Okay. 2 days with no food. No food, you want food. How you doing?
Probably pretty bad.
What are you thinking about?
Food.
Do you want to talk about your issues? No? What are you thinking about? Food. Okay, 3 days with no food. You want food, there's no food. You're walking through the 7-Eleven. Do you like Slim Jims? Do you like Cheetos? 3 days with no food. You're walking through the 7-Eleven. There's that bag of Cheetos. What are you thinking?
Oh my god.
Could you see yourself stealing?
Yeah, probably.
Could you? No, I don't think you're a thief either, but all of us know that if she gets hungry enough, she'll do what she has to do. So even though she's not a thief and she has good values and good morals, if she gets hungry enough, she'll break the rules. She'll break her own values. Drug addicts break the rules all the time. They have to. They don't have a choice in the matter. They have to do it because they're that hungry. You understand? So if you really understand craving, you understand why people keep going after drugs. I don't like being hungry either. And I know if I get hungry enough, I'm in a bad mood, I don't want to think about anything else, you know, I'm really not, and I'll do what I have to do because I just won't be hungry. Now, back in the olden days, we used to talk about denial. And you guys, since you've been in trouble with drugs, people will say, oh, Kelly's in denial. And that usually means someone refuses to admit that they have a problem. Are you refusing to admit you have a problem? No. So she's not in denial. She's not in denial. I mean, every drug user that I know, seriously, if they're being honest, will tell you, I know it's causing me some trouble. I mean, I know I shouldn't do it. And yet they keep on doing it. So the term denial no longer means I don't have a problem. What it means is that the part of the brain that controls your behavior went to sleep. The biggest problem for a drug addict is when craving builds up, your thinking goes down. Now, you guys can give me a million examples. If you use, you're going to test dirty, your PO's going to pick it up, you're going to get in trouble. Now, has that ever happened to any of you? Now, as you get closer to using, what happens to your brain? What's happening here? So let's say that you could get in trouble if you use, okay? If you use, you're going to go to juvie again. Got it? With me? Here it is. Oh, you can't have it because you're going to go, no, you can't have it. You're going to go to jail. Now, what are you thinking here?
Debate on whether I should take it or not.
Okay, but suppose that the craving monster goes, Danielle, what's she doing? What's happened to her brain? Nick, what's happened to her brain?
Giving in.
How? What's her brain saying?
You need it.
You need it? What else is it saying? You've been there. What is it? How do you talk yourself into it? What does it say?
If that was me, I'd just be like, "Shh, forget my PO.
Me too.
Just give me a
I'd rather
bag."
feel good than.
So the danger that you face, you're saying it doesn't matter?
It matters in the long run, but at the minute,
Not really.
That's what's meant by denial. Everybody knows it can hurt you. You know you can get in trouble because it's caused you trouble before. But when it's in your face, it doesn't matter. You get caught up in it. Your brain says, oh, maybe they won't test me this week. Have you had that thought before? Or, I think I could take in my friend's urine. Maybe I could bring in my friend's urine. Have any of you ever done that before? Do any of you have friends whose urine doesn't have stuff in it? That's a problem. I had a guy hand in a urine recently and I said, dude, this is not your urine. He goes, it's my urine, I swear to God, I swear on my mother's grave. I said, wow, you're pregnant, man. I said, congratulations, you're going to have a baby. So denial is really the ability to talk yourself into it when you said you weren't going to do it. It's where you get hungry enough that it doesn't matter. Or you begin making these stupid excuses, these dumb reasons why you'll get away with it. And if you really were thinking straight, you know you wouldn't get away with it. But at the time, you said it right, you get caught up in the moment. At that time, you're not thinking about your PO or your urine test. I want to get high. And and a lot of people say your mind goes blank. Your mind goes blank. You just don't remember the trouble. You don't remember why you're not supposed to do it. You don't remember what's going to happen. Your mind goes blank. You're out, and when your mind goes blank, you lose your control. Because if your mind wasn't blank, you go, oh God, that's trouble. God, I don't want to go back to juvie, right? So you're out of control because your brain goes blank. It is the worst part of addiction. It is the worst part. People cannot see what they're doing. They just don't see it. They know if they, and when they're thinking straight, they know, God, I can't use, I want to graduate, I don't want to, all this stuff. When it's in front of your face, none of those thoughts are in your head, right? They just don't come into your head. Afterwards, what do?
Start tripping.
Oh shit, oh no, God, wow, I shouldn't have done that. God, I'm in really trouble. But at the time that you were in front of the drug, you can't get those thoughts.
They don't come by, I just
There's
Your
like, yeah, let's
Focus
go.
and like,
That's right. Now, there's new science where we can look into the brain using brain scans. And if you look at an addict when they're craving their drug, the part of the brain that uses your logic and remembers the trouble and makes decisions doesn't register. Not at all. It's like a black hole in the middle of your head. Your brain goes blank. And it's like you don't have any brakes anymore. You're just out of control. You're out of control. That's exactly what addiction means. So if you look at this, you're using drugs, you're using drugs, you're using drugs, you're using drugs, and you reach a point where you need more to get high. And then you stop and you don't like the way you feel when you're sober. Craving builds up, it 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 builds up. You do it. You lose control, even though you shouldn't. Then the trouble starts. And so you say, oh God, the trouble's starting. So you try and cut back. What happens when you try and cut back? The craving builds up. Here's the kicker. The craving builds up, blanks your brain. Just blanks your brain. You can't think. You've all had that happen to you. It's yucky, isn't it? It's horrible. And then everybody yells at you and guilt trips you, and, but at the time that you did it, you were not in control of yourself. You just weren't. And it's sad. That's what the disease is. You can't control yourself even though it's hurting you, because when you stop, the hunger starts and the hunger blanks out your brain. That's the disease. Any questions on that? Danielle, what were you thinking?
well, when you quit for like you did it for many years, you did the drug, but then you quit for a while because you're getting way too deep. So you try quitting for a while, and then once you feel like you're in the clear, and then you start again. But then I don't know, I get confused.
Very good point. Now let me see if I got what you just said. Someone getting way too deep, they stop. And things perk up, they're doing better, they kind of get back on their feet, lives get better. Even though they can look back and see it was really bad when they were out of control. Now they fought the fight and they're clean.
Like you're in the clear to do it.
You're in the clear, and then what's your brain start thinking? You just said it.
I can do it.
I'm in the clear now. The heat's off. I can, and the hope, I think, check me if I'm wrong, but a lot of people say, I'm not going to get deep this time.
Well, don't say that.
Say, this time I'm just going to, I'm not going to go that far down. What happens? You lose control and you get further down. So a cycle sets up. It's the exact same cycle. So you're using, getting way too deep. Say, this is not for me. So you pull back and you're doing great. I did it. I think I'm gonna get high to treat myself. Pretty much. So it's a trap. It is such a trap. Did you guys know it was the most common reason in the United States why people die prematurely? Of all causes of death in the United States, this disease contributes to more deaths than any other cause. It's not just you guys, there's a whole lot of people stuck with this disease. And it's going to kill half of them for the most part. All right, this is critical for you to know. And you guys actually know this already. Let's suppose someone says, I'm going to stop. We know that they'll go back to using because they start to feel bad, and that bad feeling will bring on craving. With me so far? Okay, so that's what everybody goes through. They do stop. They get off, they stop using. Now, scientifically, we know there are 4 reasons why somebody who stopped will go back. Someone's trying desperately to discontinue their use. There are 4 reasons why they'll go back to using. What's the strongest one?
Temptation.
What?
Temptation.
No. Temptation's craving. Craving and temptation mean the same thing. Hunger, temptation, craving mean the same thing. What's the strongest cause of craving?
To make you go back.
What's the strongest cause of craving known?
Peer pressure.
When it's in your face.
Or just like on a silver platter to you.
Of course. I mean, you might want to stop. Everybody wants to stop, but if you go to a place where the drug is, can you not do it? Sadie, if you go to where the drug is, even though your life depended upon not doing it, what might happen? What might happen, Kelly?
To do the drug.
You do it. That's the problem. The name of that is called environmental cueing. Do I have a slide on that? Yeah. This is the most common cause of relapse. Half the time that someone tries to stop, they go back to using because the drug is around them. This isn't that hard to understand. You haven't eaten for a couple days. You go to a place and everybody's eating your favorite food, and they're porking out right in front of you, and they're offering it to you, but you can't do it because you're going to go to jail.
I'll take it anywhere I'll run.
You understand addiction. You understand it. So the biggest danger, so the name for the most common cause of relapse is called environmental cueing. This is not choice. Your brain shuts down and goes into automatic mode. You could be determined under life itself not to use. But if the drug is in your face, your brain will go blank, craving will build up, you'll do it. You have to do it. I was talking with a woman yesterday, a couple days ago. She really shouldn't use. I mean, she's in big trouble. And she's been sober for a while, and a friend came by with a drug, which is crystal. And she found herself, even though she couldn't do it, smoking crystal. So she was trying to explain it. She said, Alex, it was like watching a movie of somebody else. I watched myself do it like I was a damn robot. I couldn't stop. I knew I couldn't do it, and I just watched myself do it. That's creepy. That's where the craving monster completely took her over. And she could actually watch the craving monster. She could watch it, she watched her hands and her, brain do all the things that happens. She couldn't not do it. I felt so sorry for her. She knew, she's going to go to jail. But even knowing she could go to jail, she knew it, it's crystal clear, even knowing that. When the drug was in front of her, she lost it. Danielle, suppose someone wants to stop using drugs. What's the first thing they have to do?
Get away from it.
That is the answer. No one gets off drugs if people around them are using it. And the first thing you have to do is get away from the drug. Hard to do with tobacco. Hard to do with weed, where every place you go, people are puffing on the bowl or on a doobie. It is very, very, very hard to not get triggered because every place you go, people are offering you the damn drug.
Even the certain smell.
The smell of it, going in the room where you used it, even just to think about it. Like if you're going to go to a party, you're going to have a good time. Before you get to the party, you're like already excited and stuff. And like, woo. Well, that's the way people feel as soon as they start thinking about the drug, it's like, wow. That's not automatic. That's not voluntary. That's the craving monster going, ooh, I'm going to get fed. I'm going to get some dope. And it's gotcha. So this is the worst cause of craving known to science. And it literally will take you over. It literally, and about half of the time that people trying to stop use will relapse because somebody offered them a drug, or they smelled it, or they saw somebody who they used to use with, or their connection called them on the phone. I got some really good sense, guy. And you're going, Next thing you know, you're out the door, even though you shouldn't, right? So environmental cueing is fair. What's the second most common cause of craving? Now, I want you to remember 4 letters. EWMS. 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 Say it. Okay. Those letters, EWMS, stand for the 4 reasons why someone trying to stop will relapse. First is being around it. The second is obvious. You've all experienced withdrawal. And when withdrawal gets bad, what do you want to do? Use, of course. So as soon as you go into withdrawal, you will use. The third reason why someone will use is because drugs do more than make you high. If you're anxious, don't use drugs. It'll take away the anxiety. It'll do more for you. If you're depressed, don't use drugs. Why? Because it'll take away the depression. If you're bored, don't use drugs. Why? It'll take away the boredom. In other words, for some people, drugs do more than make you high. They know it does more than make them high. They don't like being bored, they don't like being sad, they don't like being anxious. So the drug takes away those things. So there are two answers to the question, why should somebody with boredom or depression or anxiety not use drugs? The first answer is, it'll work. It'll do more for them. They know it right off the bat. I'm around potheads all day, and they say, Doc, when I first smoked, it was like the lights went on in my head. This is the way I'm supposed to feel. I love this. This is for me. And it's true. They really feel better. They think better. It really works for them. Then what happens? They get tolerant. Then what happens? They need more and more and more. Then they stop. What happens? Much worse. So it sets up the cycle of you have to go back, and you have to go back to more, and you have to go back. So the first answer to the question, why should a bored or anxious or depressed kid not use drugs, is because it'll work. Now if you understand that drugs damage the brain chemistry that they use to make you high with, what's the second reason why a bored kid, anxious kid, or depressed kid shouldn't use drugs?
It's going to get worse.
That's the answer, Javier. It worked at first. As soon as they get tolerant to it, whatever it did for them at the beginning is now worse. It's what we call a biologic trap. Understand that concept? It worked really well at front, so you liked it. Then it got tolerant, and now you're trapped. Because if you stop, those original symptoms are going to be so much worse. You all know exactly what I mean. You've all had problems that when you stop, you did not like the way you felt. And if it was depression or anxiety or boredom, God, you're going to smoke, you're going to use, and it will work. Quickly, almost immediately. You come to depend on the drug, not to be anxious, not to be depressed, not to be bored. You can't function without it. And if you don't have the drug, you really have a lot of bad symptoms. You know those people. Some of you are those people. So having a mental health problem traps people in drugs. Ooh, God, it does. It is horrible. So, and it's so sad because they really do feel so much better when they first use. But so fast, the drug turns on them. Now they're trapped because if they don't smoke, the depression comes back, the anxiety comes back, the boredom comes back, they can't take it. When they finally go back to using, it's such a relief. Whew. But now it's continuing to hurt them and hurt them and hurt them. Then they stop,